Well, Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and romantic love is indeed a wonderful thing. However, it seems to have this inevitable tendency to fade over time. So, how can we keep the spark alive in our marriage? We're joined today by Dr. Daniel Zopoula, pastor of Midst City Church in Lethbridge and founder of the Bridges of Hope humanitarian organization, and the author of The All for Nothing Marriage: Why Your Marriage Will Kill You Before Death Do You Part. Yes, that is the title. Welcome to BCN, Daniel. Great to have you on again.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, so I love the title of your book. It's very interesting and long. Can you maybe give me a brief explanation of how you came up with it?
Well, the all for nothing, this why your marriage will kill you before death do you part, is based on an idea called primary love, and that is the fact or that there's three kind of love. But primary love is the act of giving yourself to somebody unconditionally. It's a dying to yourself and embracing the self of somebody else and creating a new person. And in that, it means it's not about me. It's like as Christ did, he died for the church that he loves. So too we die for the home and the marriage that we love. And that is why I said marriage will kill you before death do you part, because you will die to self and you are yielding to God in Christ in your spouse.
Interesting. So these days, there are a lot of different opinions on what marriage is all about, but you're a pastor, of course. So can you give us a working definition of biblical marriage?
Yeah, I think that indeed there's so many definitions of marriage out there. But for me, I found that the most helpful one is to think of marriage as a sacred place. You know, the sense that your life is sacred, my life is sacred. And being together, we create a place, a space that is sacred. And sacred spaces mean that even God, the divine, invade that place. It's a place that is safe and sacred, apart from all other. And not only that, it's a blame-free zone where our commitment is not to be in the blaming zone, because it's very easy to blame. There's no blame. And it's a place that is sacred and safe where you can give yourself completely and unconditionally to another person in the presence of God.
I like that. When people first get married, there's a lot of fire and passion, right? But is it unrealistic to expect that to continue at the same level years down the road?
Yeah, that's a great question, because sometimes I think it has been helpful for many people to think about three kind of loves. One, they call it eros, which is a love in between lovers, and then they talk about philia as companionship and general friendship. But they think about agape as the giving of yourself away freely and unconditionally, irrespective of the person, whether the person deserves it or not. Problem is today in today's society, I will love you when you love me. It's conditioned. And in the all for nothing marriage, we are recommending that the kind of love that is closer to a biblical definition of marriage and love is unconditional surrender and gift of self. Unconditional. And it's a gift because I give myself freely. I think consciously, not because I cannot, but I offer myself. And I say to my wife, here I am, have me, I'm here for you. There is no condition attached to my gift. Because we believe that anytime you attach any condition to your gift, it's not love. It's a giving of yourself, not agape love. Agape love, you give fully, no condition attached to it.
I would imagine you've learned a lot of these lessons over time as you've been married. You probably didn't come into marriage knowing all of this, or did you?
No, I didn't know anything. I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue. That's why my marriage killed me. Because
Oh.
I came in this marriage with a sense of compatibility. You got to find the right mate. You got to find the right wife or the right husband. And everybody in our churches, and we want to seek the right partner. We don't want to make a mistake. And they give us the character, the competency. That person needs to have a high character, high moral. They need to be competency. They need to be, you have to, they have to be compatibility, which is a myth. I got married and I realized, well, I am in a multiracial, multicultural kind of marriage, and I realized, wow, the fact that I'm from Africa and my wife is from here is not really what determined the quality, whether it is the quality and the quantity and our experience of marriage. It was the person I brought. And I realized in order to go forward into our destiny as one, I needed to die to myself. And that is why I began to really explore what the Bible have to say about marriage, what the Bible have to say about love. And it profoundly transformed me in my marriage. And I believe that understanding alone can change and profoundly transform the way we do life. And if we have time, I can tell you a story from the Bible about why this have become important to us.
Oh, yeah.
It's Genesis 29. It's a story about a man named Jacob. It's interesting that the name Jacob means deceiver. And Jacob had deceived his brother Esau, and he's running away to hide. And as he's running, he decided to go to Laban, his uncle. And he goes there, he has an encounter with God. And then he ended up in his uncle's house. And he fell in love with Rachel. Love. And the Bible described Rachel, again, in that literature as curved in all sides, in all the right place. She was beautiful. She was wonderful. She was, oh, wow, every eyebrow it was raised around her. So he told his uncle, I want to marry her. Give me Rachel for my wife. He fell in love deeply. And then his uncle said, no problem, no problem. You work for me 7 years, and I'm going to give you Rachel. If you remember the story, he worked so hard, and the Bible said 7 years seemed to be like 7 days. And on the day of the wedding, something happened. After the feast, the celebration, he goes to bed. His wife is brought to him. So he goes to bed. He made love to her. And Bible says when he wake up in the morning, he looked, and it was not Rachel. It was Leah. It was Leah.
It was his sister.
Rachel's older sister.
Yeah.
And Jacob is shocked, and he goes to his uncle. He said, why have you Jacobed me? Why have you deceived me? I work for Rachel. Why did you give me Leah? And then his uncle said, well, because she's older. That's our custom. And here's what he did. He said, if you finish your honeymoon with Leah, I'm going to give you Rachel too. It's a bizarre story. So he finished his honeymoon with Leah, and then he's given Rachel for 7 more years. He worked and worked for 7 more years. But here's the point that the story is trying to tell. And so the story is this. Even Jacob was in love with Rachel. But in order to get the woman of his love, he needed to embrace the woman of his fate. Now, here it is. In order to get to Rachel, you need to marry Leah. And the point being made is that every choice that we make, we need to live with its unintended consequences, right? If you choose Rachel, you will have to marry Leah. And I think for many of us in marriage, we have really got our Rachel. Our problem is that we never seem to be at peace with Leah, which is the unintended consequences of our choice and decision. And if you read the Bible, interesting enough, it is Leah that will end up being the great-great-grandmother of Jesus Christ.
Right. You know, it's so interesting. I want to get back to your book for a second here, because in your book, you do say that the key to a phenomenal marriage is something called primary love, right? So you can maybe tell us about that a little bit, and also when the romantic sparks have faded and marriage becomes mundane or worse. Sometimes you'll hear people say, we just weren't that compatible. So what's your response to that specifically?
Yes, and that's what I mean. Like in the story, primary love is that giving away of yourself to somebody. It's that surrendering. It's a dying to yourself and giving yourself away to somebody, irrespective of the fact whether they deserve it or not. You see, we have this culture in which we know, yeah, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. In primary love, I'll scratch your back even if you don't scratch mine. No greater love has there been that a man should die and give his life and surrender it for his own. And in primary love, I am really trying to explain how in marriage, in Christian understanding of marriage, we need to die to self and to embrace the mystery and the sacred space, the sacred place that somebody else is, embracing them unconditionally. I talk about compatibility and the sense that really we tend to say, well, it's a Christian teaching. You need to get married. You need to pick somebody. There's only one person that God has for you there, and that person need to be compatible to you. That means you need to have the same thinking, same feelings, same preferences. But in my book, I defend that actually compatibility is a myth, because what you like, me, what I like, it changes over time.
I was
Because
just going to say that you might find somebody that's compatible with you today, but like 15 years from now, I mean, it's possible. People change all the time.
and that's right, and that's why the compatibility myth is a myth. It's a sense of, but the only thing that doesn't change is my unconditional love, my unconditional giving of myself to my spouse, whether it is cold or hot, whether everything feels good or terrible. My gift is unconditional.
Uh,
Let's think about it for a minute. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. When it comes to compatibility or lack of compatibility, I think that we all tend to point the fingers, when things aren't going smoothly, or to place blame on the spouse. So you write about the 100 to none principle. What is that?
Yeah, because and again, just to finish about the compatibility, it is again when people blame compatibility for problem in their marriage, it's a myth. Uh, marriage, I've seen marriage. Most marriages have one problem: they have a connection problem, not a compatibility problem. When I don't connect to somebody, when you're not connected to somebody, everything else falls apart. Your connection is what makes a marriage. That is very, very important. I want your listener to just have that kind of understanding. When connection is there, we have an incredible marriage. The 100% to none is this. It's based on this principle. When people get married, I meet them for premarital counseling. And one of the things that I ask them, I say, marriage is a 50-50% proposition. You give 50%, I give 50%. And I say, wow, it's not in that need. So now, when your wife gets pregnant, what is 50%? What does that mean? And people say, wow, I never thought about that. Well, I say, what happens if your spouse is ill? They become incapacitated. Like how do you do 50-50? And then they say, I never thought about that. And then it occurs to them that, wow, we cannot operate on a 50% proposition. I believe the divorce rate in our country, the problem we encounter in marriage in our country is because we have based it on the 50-50 proposition. And I suggest that marriage is not a 50-50 proposition, it's 100% to none. I give you 100%. I give you all that I am. You get to choose to give, but my love to you, my being here, is a gift to you unconditional. Now that's a whole different way of thinking, and that means I don't expect anything. I receive what you give, but I can control my gift. I give myself without condition.
I like that. I like that. And it's a perfect message for Valentine's Day, too. Thanks so much, Danielle, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm really, really looking forward to an incredible Valentine's season. I hope you have a great one with your own love, your lovers, your partner, and God bless you.
You too. Thank you. Dr. Daniel Zopoula is the author of The All for Nothing Marriage. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.